This is a story I call The Crack in the Floor. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi. I didn't grow up there though. I grew up in a little place called Hyattsville, Maryland, just a little ways from Washington, D.C. But we always had a lot of Mississippi around our house. That's because that's where Mama was from. Daddy was stationed in Mississippi during World War II. That's where he met Mama. They fell madly in love, got married, and had a baby, me. And after the war, Daddy moved Mama up north where he was from. And she was perfectly happy with that. The family turned into 6 kids after some time, and she just loved her family and Daddy and Maryland and everything, but she did miss her Mississippi relatives an awful lot. So every summer we would be piled into the car during our summer vacation, and we would go to Mississippi. And none of us kids liked it either, because it was a long drive. And we were squished in that car like so many sardines. I don't even know how we fit in that car now to think of it. All 8 of us. Daddy sat in the front, he was the driver, and Mama sat next to him, and she held our little baby sister, Chrissy, in her lap. And in the back seat, there was Roger, Shelby, me, Jimmy, and Tommy. 5 of us. And that was just perfect conditions for all kind of squabbling. Well, we would be quiet for a little while, because we were herded into the car even before the sun came up, and we were all half asleep. But, as we began waking up, it would start. Daddy! Jimmy's looking at me! And Daddy would say, yo kids, be quiet back there. And we would be. We'd be quiet for a little while. And besides, we had our own nonverbal ways of communicating. Something like this. And we would just irritate each other to pieces. But we'd be quiet for a little while, and then it would start up again. Like this one day, Jimmy was sitting on my left, and he started singing. I told him, shut up. And then Shelby, on the left, would say, he doesn't have to shut up. And I would say, why don't you shut up? And about that time, we would see the hand. Daddy would hold on to the steering wheel with his left hand, and with his right hand, he would swat at us in the back seat. Of course, he couldn't really hit us. He couldn't really get to us that way. But we made a game out of it. We would try to push each other into the path of the hand, and sooner or later, one of us would get a smack. And we would holler like we were being killed. Ow! And this would go on for the whole trip. Little squabbling, little quiet, little squabbling, see the hand, and finally we would get there. Well, I am not proud of it, but when I was a kid, I thought the Mississippi relatives were a little weird. For one thing, it was their names. They all had these long names. It was so hard to keep track of them. And this one year, Mama said that I was going to be staying with her sister, Aunt Hattie Jane Clatterbuck. And Aunt Hattie Jane was married to Uncle George. And the men in that family had the same first and middle name. So he was Uncle George Clatterbuck. And then they had one son. His name was Ralph. Of course, his name was Ralph. And we used to laugh and giggle and make fun of him. It was so mean. Because if you say it really loud and fast, it sounds like you're barking. Ralph, 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 Ralph. That was bad. We really shouldn't have done that. But the girls in the family were Daisy Dean, Betty Sue, Theresa Ann, and Shirley Mae. And Shirley Mae, she was the favorite cousin, the favorite one in that family. So I was happy to be staying with Aunt Hattie Jane then. Shirley Mae was my same age. And she lived on a farm, a big farm. And the first day I was there, I was just so fascinated because I was a city girl. And I had never seen these farm animals, and she had cows and pigs and chickens and all kind of goats and horses, and it was just a thrill to walk around the farm and see all that. And everything was going really good until I had to go to the bathroom. And we were out in the field, and I told Shirley Mae that I had to go, and she said, okay, come on, follow me. And she started walking off towards the woods. And I said, Shirley Mae, I told you I have to go to the bathroom. Why are you walking away from the house? And she said, well, the bathroom isn't in the house, silly. Everybody knows that. And I thought it was some kind of a joke. But I followed her. And she took me to this old rotten looking, fallen down shack. And she said, there it is. And I said, there's what? She said, that's our bathroom. Go on in. So I thought, okay, I'll go along with the joke. And I opened up the door, and one whiff sent me rolling backwards. I was gagging. I said, Shirley Mae, I can't go in there. It stinks. I'll throw up. And she said, well, if you're going to be so prissy about it, you could just go off in the woods. And I said, well, I guess I'll have to. And I started stomping off towards the woods. And this gang of chickens started following me. And I know this might sound a little weird to people who lived on a farm, but I was afraid of them. I'd never seen real live chickens, and they have pointed little beaks. I just couldn't. So I just tried to shoo them away, but they wouldn't shoo. And then I thought, well, okay, I'll outrun them. So I took off running. And they just kept up with me. I couldn't get rid of the daggone things. But finally, I had to take care of business. So I stooped down, and those demon chickens started pecking on my bare behind. It was so degrading. Oh, I told Shirley Mae, I said, I don't know if I can stay with you, if I've got to put up with this. And she said, oh, don't worry about it. And I was sure that I would not have to go for the rest of the summer, but I did that night. And Shirley Mae had told me, she said, don't worry, if you have to go in the middle of the night, just wake me up and I will go with you. Well, she was true to her word. I shook her when I had to go, and she said, okay, come on, follow me. So she took me into what they called their dining room. And she went over to the back farthest corner of the room, and she pointed. And I said, Shirley Mae, what are you doing? She said, if you look really close there, there is a crack in the floor, and that's where we go at night. And then she started going back to bed before I could even open my mouth to say, are you kidding? But before she left the room, she said, whatever you do, don't let Daddy find out. He doesn't like us to do it because he said it makes a house stink. Then she was gone. So I stood there and I looked and I thought, okay, I have a choice. I can negotiate with that there crack, or I can go outside with those demon chickens. So I did it. I did the best I could, and I was a little afraid of Uncle George that he was going to find out, but he never said anything about it. And I tell you what, before the end of that summer, I became very good friends with that crack in the floor. Cute.